thanks to your Freedom of Information requests in Canada that we now have, for the first time, comprehensive processing data going back to 2014, effectively the year when the program began in earnest for the Canada Startup Visa. One of the more salient points the data revealed was that processing volume had soared by nearly 600% in 2023 to more than 4,000 applications processed. What explains this sudden surge?
Well, Canada has always been important in a world of migration, except previous programs. We had Quebec Investment Program, we had Immigrant Investment Program that were over $1 million each. They were shut down for the longest time. So when the Startup Visa came out, people didn't believe it. For the first 5 years of the program, it was in a pilot stage. And not a lot of agents, not a lot of companies wanted to bet on something that is not a permanent program. But after the first 5 years, the program became permanent. It was announced that as a status, and the volume surged. When we look at total numbers, in the first 5 years, there were less than 1,000 approvals. After that, there were now thousands of people every month, not even yearly, applying. And at one point, we had over 10,000 people in an inventory for government to process for this particular
backlog
track.
you're saying?
The backlog was over 10,000 at one point. So government took a look at that backlog and said, what are we going to do? Historically, what they did, we take the first 1,000 in and the rest of them out. Except government of Canada is kind of better than that. They said, well, don't we increase that quota? Instead of 1,000 per year, they increased that quota to 5,000. So they had a 5 times increase, and next year it was planned to be even 6,000. So the reason for the surge? Demand. So more and more people found out about that program, and even more than that, a lot more people experienced success. So the first batch of people already got their permanent residency, they're already established in Canada, and they were telling the world that it was easy for them, they went through the path, so that created kind of that snowball effect. Second reason, or third or fourth, depending how we're gonna take a look at it. So in the past, there were just a few designated organizations. Designated organizations mean government-endorsed organizations that would issue the permission called a letter of support. In UK, it would have been called letter of endorsement for this path. Meaning once someone applies, they would say, that's a great business, we'll endorse it, we'll work together with it. And the second you receive that letter of support, you can apply for permanent residency. When we take a look at the last 3 years, the number of designated organizations almost doubled. At one point, again, coming back to inventory, there were close to 20 incubators that were in a backlog to be approved to also be issuing that letter of support. So with more processing power, with more issuance of letters of support, again, more interest, more people ended up being in that queue.
So would you say that there's also increased demand to become a designated organization?
There was actually, there was a land rush of how many more incubators could become those designated. Also angel groups and venture capitalists. Now, there is a small rule that applied to them. You cannot just say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to be an incubator, I want to start issuing letters of support, because everyone would want it. They had to be in operation for at least 2 years prior to that, servicing already Canadian businesses. So it could not have been, hey, I'm brand new, give me that ability to rubber stamp applications.
And so a lot of those who started the process 2 years ago, now they're finally...
And now they're in the process, now they can start issuing, now they can start vetting, now they can start incubating those companies. Another factor, Government of Canada has heavily invested into immigration. They've announced a $2 billion investment to speed up. They've announced that they have opened up extra 5 locations, including one in Manila, giving us almost like 24-hour processing ability. They've announced that they are going to be hiring 2,000 new immigration agents to process. So when you are marrying new people that are applying and ability to process more, that's where you're seeing a big increase in numbers.
You mentioned designated organizations. There are 3 kinds that can endorse startup visa applicants in Canada. There's angel investor networks, business incubators, and venture capital funds. The data that you were able to obtain showed that about 3/4 of applications last year came through the business incubator route. Why did the lion's share of applicants opt for business incubators versus angel investor groups or venture capital funds?
So to the question, why angel versus venture capital versus incubator? Now, I'm one of the very few privileged people in Canada. As far as I know, I'm the only one in Canada that actually worked inside of all 3 of those organizations. So I could see who are the applicants. So people that are applying to an incubator, that could be of any stage of life. Someone that had a brand new idea for business. They've never been in business before. They can say, hey, I want to open something up in Canada and apply on that idea stage business to an incubator. The same type of person cannot apply to an angel group or venture capitalist because VCs and angels only work with later stage companies that are investable in. Now, when you're taking mature companies and you're taking people that already created their minimum viable product, they have small amount of traction. Yes, they could be applying to venture capitalists, angels, and incubators. However, when we look at the total number of applicants, if we take, let's say, 10,000 people that have ever applied, most of them are in the earlier stage. And because of that, naturally, they gravitate towards an incubator. Also, during my processing time, so I was working inside of an angel group for a couple of years, looking up at all of the applicants. So somebody would apply through a portal, I'll review their application, and I would either approve them or not approve. When I take a snapshot of the last 300 applicants coming to me through an angel investment group, only one of them had an investable idea. So 299 others could have been applying to an incubator, but only one of those 300 was good enough for an angel group or a venture capital group. So the numbers really reflect what is the nature of the startups, what is the nature of the people that are applying. Those that are brand new, they would be going through an incubator, and those that need funding to grow their business, they would be going to an angel group or a venture capital fund.
One of the questions that people always have about the Canada startup visa is what type of processing times are they looking at when they're applying for a startup visa? I mean, it's been different at different times, but what is it right now?
So the processing time is never a straightforward answer. What government says versus what is the reality versus what are the options. And I'll start off with this. When I started in the startup visa field, that was close to 10 years ago now, the fastest application I have ever seen going through was in 41 days for a full permanent residency. Now, you don't hear anyone else selling any other type of migration path that says, hey, I can get you permanent residency in 41 days. So just doesn't exist.
Right.
So, but that was the beginning where there were few applicants, few processors, few designated organizations, and those that knew about this program, they're already pretty ready to go. So fast forward 5 years later, the processing time went from just 41 days at the record all the way to 1 year. And people started to complain, 1 year for permanent residency, yet it's still lightning fast according to anywhere else in the world. So 1 year was still good. Then pandemic happened. So we still had thousands of people applying, government wasn't processing a lot of them, and the processing time went up all the way to 35 months. So according to Government of Canada processing times, and they list them directly on their website, processing time went up all the way to 35 months. Now, is that the reality for everyone or not? It was the reality for those people that are applying during the pandemic time. So thousands of people were applying, they got stuck in that big queue of people going through. Today, on Government of Canada website, we're seeing the actual processing time for the actual files, not what they're listing, because you can actually look up your status there. They are now going down to 30 months, and yet, when I take a look at my last 20 cases, and they're from everywhere. They're from Nigeria, from Iran, from Russia, from China, from all over the world. So when you take a look at an average of my last 20 applicants, I've seen them being processed within and under 20 months. Now, it may still sound like a lot for some people. They're all saying, well, I have a startup. I can't wait 20 months to move to Canada. Well, then there is a shortcut. All you need to do is to prove to Government of Canada that you want to arrive earlier to start your business. And because of that, you can get a temporary work permit, or you can get the work visa that allows you to actually start working in your company.
Before you get your PR.
Before you get the PR.
Yeah.
In some countries, for example, some of the African countries are processed, they get it within a month or two. In Vietnam, I've seen it in as quick as 2 months that they can already arrive to Canada and start working on their startup. And the beautiful thing behind it, if the husband or wife, whoever is the primary applicant, gets a closed work permit, their spouse gets an open work permit that they can work anywhere they want. And their kids, by most of the top Canadian universities, will get counted as local, as domestic students, saving a lot of money on university fees.